It's been 2 years since COVID changed our lives dramatically. In the first few weeks of the pandemic, entertainment venues and many bars and restaurants shut down. Employees stayed away from offices and worked from home. And takeout and delivery became more popular than ever before.
All of those developments, as well as others, are to varying extents still with us, and they have changed Maine cities. One barometer of how our cities is doing is commercial real estate. Now, you may not have much interest in commercial real estate, but if you care about the vitality of Portland or Bangor, you want downtown buildings to have people in them. With that in mind, we talked with Greg Bolus, a commercial real estate broker with the Bolus Company, for his take on how Maine's urban downtowns are holding up.
Greater Portland, in particular, and Maine in general, is doing much better than many other places in the United States. In particular, office space, for example, is running at about 6% vacancy. Actually, 5% vacancy. It was 6% the year before, 2020. That's relatively low.
How does that compare with other cities?
18% in some of the major metropolitan cities. What's interesting is those numbers don't tell the whole story, because there's a lot of space that's vacant but leased. So if you're a landlord and you have a tenant who has perhaps not been in the office for 2 years, they're still paying rent on that space. The question is, what happens when the lease is up?
How do you answer that? Because that is a good question. What happens when some of these leases expire and some of these tenants have to decide, do I stay, do I leave, do I downsize?
It'll be interesting to see what happens. I think you're going to see more vacancies in the suburbs than downtown. I think downtown is overall healthier than the suburbs. There's a lot of buildings out in the suburbs that are going to be available for rent.
The reason that I talk to you about these things is not because we're commercial real estate experts or commercial real estate journalists, but simply because it's an important part of the vitality of the city. If the buildings are empty, then downtown is going to lose a lot of its energy and a lot of its economic engine. What do you think is happening to the fabric of the community? How strong is it right now?
I think it's a lot better than it was 2 years ago, for sure. I mean, the restaurants have gone out of business. Other restaurants have taken their place. It's still relatively easy to find a parking space downtown. That's how you kind of judge how good the economy is. When you can't find a parking space, business is booming. But as I said, we're seeing a lot of employees moving back to the offices for those who work with local companies, for those companies that are 100 employees or less. It's the bigger companies that are still remote for the most part.
A lot of your focus is on southern Maine, but what are you hearing from Bangor, Waterville, Augusta, other cities in Maine? What's happening with their downtowns?
Augusta is in pretty good shape. Bangor, I think the vacancy rate in the suburbs is around 5%, which is low. And in this downtown, it's around 6.5% for Bangor. And in talking to the brokers up there, they're confident that that's going to hold, that you're not going to see a lot of vacancies, and primarily because there hasn't been a lot of new construction over the years. Waterville, I don't know if you've been up there. I went up a month ago and took a tour of the downtown, and that place is just on fire. It's unbelievable what Colby College has done to Waterville and the Alphon Foundation in terms of the contributions they've made. And so I think Waterville's in a pretty good place.
Here's an interesting question. Is any developer at any time in the near future going to say, hey, I'd like to put up a new office building in downtown Portland?
Not if he knows what he's doing. No.
Not if he wants to make money.
No. The only way you would do that is if you had a tenant lined up. You're not going to build it on spec.
Let's just touch on housing, in particular apartments and condos, that angle of commercial real estate. Obviously, prices are sky high, and there's a real need for affordable housing. I don't know that we need more $2 and $3 million condos in Portland, but we certainly need affordable housing. Do you see anything happening there that's really going to change the picture and offer real relief?
No, I don't. There's a couple of buildings, residential buildings going up in Portland, but those were approved prior to this referendum that was passed by the citizens of Portland this past fall, I think it was. That referendum put restrictions in terms of how many units could be market rate on apartments, how many could be subsidized, and because of the formula that they came up with, developers just can't make the numbers work. And so rather than have the effect of creating more apartments for the city, it's having the opposite effect.
And it's worth repeating his point that with commercial real estate, there's a lag. It takes time for these leases to expire for businesses to make their plans. He noted that after the Great Recession in 2008, 2009, that really 3 years went by before they saw the vacancies rise because it took that long for the leases to run out.
Good stuff. All right.